Hi, Jeannie. It's great to see you. Are the rumors true? Are you dating Anderson .Paak?
Have you seen his movie? It's so good.
How is it?
Beautiful, Jane.
It's good to see you. It's good to see you arriving at Andy's.
Y'all, this isn't just another celebrity breakup. This is the kind of story that makes people question everything they thought they knew. Because what's coming out right now isn't just messy, it's calculated, it's layered, and it's starting to look like a pattern. For months, the public believed this was just a quiet divorce between Jeezy and Jeannie Mai. Two people, moving on, living separate lives. But behind the scenes, sources are now claiming something far more disturbing. They say this relationship may have never been what it seemed. That it wasn't built on love, but on timing, positioning, and advantage. And now, Jeezy is done staying silent. According to insiders, he's not just speaking out, he's warning someone. And that someone is Anderson .Paak. Because if these rumors are even partially true, this story didn't start with Jeezy, and it won't end with Anderson. There are whispers about past connections, names that keep resurfacing, relationships that may have overlapped long before the public ever caught on. And now people are asking a dangerous question. Was Jeezy just another chapter in a much bigger pattern? Or worse, was he the warning sign nobody paid attention to? Because if what insiders are hinting at is real, then this isn't just a breakup story anymore. This is a cycle. And if history repeats itself the way some are claiming, then Anderson .Paak might already be next.
Black guys. Yeah, I did. But for me, dark meat on the side, white keeps me mean and lean. You know, that's why I married white. Yeah, that's what I like.
What if everything you thought the story was only the version they wanted you to see? Because behind the headlines, behind the carefully crafted statements, there's a completely different narrative starting to surface. And according to multiple insiders, it's far darker than anyone expected. For months, the split between Jeezy and Jeannie Mai was presented as a clean break. Two people growing apart. Two lives moving in different directions. Simple. But now, that version is starting to fall apart. Because sources close to the situation are claiming that what looked like a normal relationship may have actually been something far more calculated. Not spontaneous, not emotional, but strategic. And if that's true, then the timeline of everything we thought we knew changes completely. According to whispers circulating in entertainment circles, Jeezy has allegedly begun opening up behind the scenes, and what he's saying is raising serious questions. He reportedly believes that his marriage wasn't built on love the way he once thought, that instead, he was chosen. Chosen for what he represented, his name, his status, his financial power. And now, insiders claim he's looking back at everything and seeing a pattern he didn't notice before. Because when you start connecting the dots, the story doesn't begin with him. Names from the past are being pulled back into the conversation. Old relationships, old timelines, moments that once seemed unrelated, suddenly lining up in a way.
You go to therapy with her.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good.
Right.
So you actually addressed it,
Right.
tried to work through it, tried to do the work, and it just was like not happening.
No.
Well, then you try.
Some sources allege that long before Jeezy entered the picture, there were already whispers about complicated connections involving Jeannie Mai and other high-profile figures. Nothing confirmed, but enough noise to make people look twice. And now, those same names are resurfacing again. Not as random history, but as part of a possible pattern. A pattern where relationships don't just end, they transition. Quietly, seamlessly, and often, long before the public ever realizes. Which brings us to the most unsettling part of this entire situation. Because if what insiders are suggesting holds any truth, then Jeezy may not have been the beginning of the story. He may have been the middle, a chapter. And according to sources, he's starting to believe that himself. There are claims that at some point during the relationship, Jeezy allegedly began noticing inconsistencies, small things at first. Changes in behavior, moments that didn't quite add up, energy that felt different. At the time, it may have seemed insignificant. But now, those same moments are being re-examined under a completely different light. And that's when things start to get even more complicated. Because around the same time these doubts allegedly began forming, another name quietly entered the picture. Anderson .Paak. At first, there was nothing obvious. No headlines. No confirmations. Just subtle appearances. Shared spaces, industry events, moments that could easily be dismissed as coincidence. But then, those moments started adding up. And suddenly, what once looked like nothing started looking like something. something that may have existed long before anyone was supposed to notice. Now, insiders are claiming that Jeezy didn't just feel betrayed, he felt blindsided. Because from his perspective, the story being told publicly didn't match what he believes was actually happening behind closed doors. And that's why, according to sources, he's no longer staying quiet. Because in his mind, this isn't just about a failed marriage anymore. It's about a narrative he believes has been flipped, where the focus stayed on him, while other parts of the story remained hidden. And now, with new rumors connecting Jeannie Mai and Paak, that narrative is starting to crack. Because if the timeline overlaps the way some are suggesting, then this isn't just about moving on. It's about what was already in motion, before the ending ever officially began. And that's the question people can't stop asking right now. When did this really start? Because if the answer to that question changes, then everything else does too. And if Jeezy is right about one thing, it's that this story isn't over. Not even close. Because if this really is a pattern, then someone else may already be stepping into the same cycle. And this time, the warning has already been given.
Do is I'm going to write my list.
Yeah.
And I'm going to forgive.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to forget.
But see, I'm looking in your eyes and I'm not really buying that.
I'm going to forgive. But I'm not going to forget.
But if you thought the story ended with suspicion, that's where things take a much darker turn. Because according to multiple insiders, what's happening right now isn't just fallout from a breakup. It's a warning. And the person at the center of that warning is Paak. Behind the scenes, sources claim Jeezy is no longer just questioning the past. He's looking at the present and seeing history repeat itself in real time. And that's what's making this situation feel different. More intense. More urgent. More personal. Because from his perspective, this isn't just about what already happened to him. It's about what he believes is about to happen to someone else. According to whispers circulating through industry circles, Jeezy allegedly believes there is a pattern in how relationships form, evolve, and end. A pattern where everything appears normal on the surface until suddenly it isn't. Where emotional distance begins quietly. Where new connections form out of sight. And where, by the time the truth becomes visible, the next chapter has already started. And if that sounds extreme, it's because of what insiders claim he's been saying behind closed doors. They say he's not speaking with hesitation anymore. He's speaking with certainty. Allegedly warning that what Anderson sees right now is not the full picture. That what feels new, exciting, and real may not be as simple as it looks. Because if the timeline being discussed is even partially accurate, then this connection didn't just appear out of nowhere. It was building, quietly, long before the public ever noticed. And that's where the story starts to spiral. Because once you begin to question when something started, you also start questioning why it was hidden. Why certain moments weren't visible. Why certain details never made headlines. And most importantly, who knew what and when. According to some insiders, this is exactly where Jeezy's frustration is coming from. Not just the idea of being replaced, but the belief that the replacement may have already been in motion while he was still part of the picture. And if that's true, then this isn't just a breakup. It's an overlap. A transition that may have started before the ending was ever announced. And that possibility is what's fueling everything right now. Because if there was overlap, then the entire narrative changes. Suddenly, it's not about two people moving on. It's about timing, secrecy, and intention. Now, at the center of all this noise is Paak, a name that, until recently, wasn't even part of this story. But now, he's right in the middle of it. And according to sources, that's exactly why the alleged warning matters. Because Jeezy isn't just reflecting on his own experience. He's projecting forward, allegedly suggesting that the same cycle could be repeating. And if it is, then the beginning might feel perfect, effortless, even genuine. But the ending, according to what he's hinting at, won't be. That's the part that has people paying attention. Because this isn't being framed as jealousy. It's being framed as recognition. Recognition of a pattern that only becomes visible after you've already been through it. And that's what makes this narrative so uncomfortable. Because if someone believes they've already seen how the story plays out, then every new detail starts to feel less like coincidence and more like confirmation. Meanwhile, on the outside, everything still looks controlled. No direct confirmations. No explosive public statements. Just silence. And in situations like this, silence doesn't calm things down. It amplifies them. Because every unanswered question becomes louder. Every rumor gains weight. Every theory starts to feel more believable. And right now, the loudest theory of all is this: that Jeezy isn't just speaking out of emotion. He's speaking out of experience. Allegedly trying to point out something that others can't yet see. Because from where he stands, the story already has an ending. And if that's true, then Paak may not be stepping into something new. He may be stepping into something that's already been written. And that's where this turns from drama into something much heavier, because at the center of all of this isn't just reputation, it's impact, real lives, real consequences, and most importantly, a child, Monaco. Because while the internet debates timelines and theories, there's a bigger concern quietly sitting underneath all of it. Stability. According to insiders, this is where Jeezy's mindset shifts from frustration to fear. Not fear of losing a relationship, but fear of what happens when everything around his daughter's world starts changing too quickly. New dynamics, new people, new attention. And if the situation surrounding those changes is as unstable as some are suggesting, then the stakes become much higher. Which is why, according to sources, conversations about custody are no longer just theoretical. They're becoming real. Because from his perspective, this isn't about control. It's about protection. And if that's the case, then what started as a private situation is now moving towards something far more public, far more complicated, and potentially far more explosive. Because if even part of what's being alleged turns out to be true, then this isn't just a story about the past. It's a story about what's coming next. And the question everyone is asking now is simple. Is this really a warning? Or is it the beginning of another cycle already unfolding? Because if Jeezy is right about one thing, it's this. The most dangerous patterns are the ones you don't recognize until it's too late. But just when it seemed like this story couldn't get any more intense, everything shifted again. Because now, this isn't just about rumors, it's about consequences. Real ones. Behind the scenes, insiders claim the situation is no longer contained between just two people or even three. It's expanding, pulling in new layers, new tensions, new conflicts that were never supposed to reach the surface. And at the center of it all is a timeline that refuses to stay quiet. Because the more people look into it, the more complicated it becomes. What once seemed like separate chapters, Jeezy's marriage, Jeannie's alleged new connection, Anderson's own situation, are now being viewed as something else entirely. Overlapping stories. Intersecting paths, a collision that may have been building long before anyone realized. According to multiple sources, this is the point where everything starts to feel less like coincidence and more like alignment. Unintentional to some, but to others, far too precise. Because when names keep appearing in the same spaces, at the same times, under the same circumstances, people begin to ask a different kind of question. Not what happened, but was this already in motion? And that question is exactly what's fueling the current storm. Because if the answer is yes, then everything changes. Now, insiders are claiming that tensions behind closed doors are escalating faster than expected. Not just emotionally, but legally. Because once allegations, timelines, and new relationships begin to overlap, they don't stay in the realm of gossip for long. They move into something else. Something official. Something that can't be controlled by silence anymore. And that's where this situation is reportedly heading. Toward a confrontation that may not just play out online, but inside a courtroom. Because according to sources, discussions surrounding custody are becoming more serious, more defined, more urgent. And at the center of those discussions is Monaco, a child who never chose to be part of any of this, but is now directly affected by all of it. Because when relationships shift this quickly, when narratives change this suddenly, the question becomes unavoidable. What kind of environment is being created? According to insiders, this is the point where Jeezy's alleged frustration transforms into something deeper, something heavier. Not anger, not revenge, but concern. The kind of concern that doesn't fade when the headlines disappear. Because while the internet debates who's right and who's wrong, he's reportedly focused on something else entirely. Stability, consistency, protection. And if those things feel uncertain, then action becomes inevitable. Meanwhile, on the other side of this story, a completely different narrative is forming. Supporters of Jeannie Mai argue that everything being said right now is being exaggerated. That what people are calling a pattern is simply a woman moving forward with her life. That growth, change, and new relationships shouldn't automatically be turned into suspicion. And from that perspective, the entire situation looks very different. Not calculated, not strategic, but personal, human, complicated in the way real life often is. And that's what makes this story so difficult to define. Because depending on who you listen to, the same events tell completely different stories. One version paints a picture of manipulation, the other, of misunderstanding. One suggests hidden timelines, the other, natural progression. And somewhere in between those two narratives is the truth. Still unclear, still unfolding, still just out of reach. But here's where things become impossible to ignore. Because the longer this silence continues, the louder everything else becomes. Every old photo gets reanalyzed, every public appearance becomes a clue, every past interaction is pulled back into the spotlight. And with each new piece, the pressure builds, because eventually, something has to give. Either the rumors collapse under their own weight, or they lead to something undeniable. A confirmation, a contradiction, a moment that shifts everything. And according to some insiders, that moment may not be far away. Because when legal discussions intensify, when personal tensions escalate, and when public attention refuses to fade, the situation reaches a breaking point. And when that point comes, the outcome is rarely quiet. It's loud, it's messy, and it changes everything. Right now, all three sides remain mostly silent. No direct confirmations, no detailed denials. Just distance. But in a story like this, distance doesn't create clarity. It creates speculation. And speculation is what's driving this entire narrative forward. Because the truth is, people aren't just watching the story anymore. They're waiting for it. Waiting for the next reveal, the next shift, the next piece that finally connects everything together. And when that piece arrives, it won't just affect reputations. It will affect lives. Because this isn't just about who was right or who was wrong. It's about what actually happened. And what happens next. Because if the pattern being suggested is real, then this isn't the end of the story. It's the continuation of it. A cycle moving forward, with new names, new roles, and possibly the same ending. And if that's true, then the warning we heard at the beginning of this story was never just about the past. It was about the future. Because in situations like this, history doesn't just repeat itself. It evolves. And the only question left now is, who gets caught in it next? And now, everything comes down to this moment. Because no matter which side of the story you believe, one thing is clear, this situation is far from over. The silence from everyone involved isn't calming anything down, it's making it worse. Every day that passes without answers only adds more pressure, more speculation, more tension ready to explode. Insiders are claiming that what we've seen so far might only be the surface. That behind closed doors, conversations are getting heavier, decisions are being made, and moves are already in motion that could change everything overnight. And if even a fraction of these allegations turn out to be true, this won't just stay online drama, it will turn into a full-blown public fallout that nobody can control. Because here's the reality, patterns don't just disappear. They repeat, they evolve, and sometimes they escalate. And if Jeezy's alleged warning means anything at all, then this story isn't about what already happened. It's about what's coming next. So now the question isn't who's right or wrong anymore, it's who saw it coming and who didn't. Because if this really is a cycle, then someone else is already stepping into it. And when the next piece of this story finally drops, it won't be subtle. It won't be quiet. It will hit all at once, and when it does, the entire narrative could flip in seconds. So don't look away now, because this isn't the end of the story. This is the part where everything begins to unravel.